Cathy Semeria. Welcome to the Relevate Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me this morning. It's a real joy to be here with you.
Oh my gosh. Well, I feel like I know you. I feel like I know your beautiful daughter. I've read a lot, I've learned a lot, and she just seems so incredibly special and amazing. So we're here today to really celebrate her life and her legacy and your family's journey through a really, really tough time. So I thank you for being here, for being vulnerable, for being so strong, and for being
Thank you for inviting me.
being here to share your story. So let's start with you first. Tell me a little bit about yourself, Cathy.
So I'm the oldest of five, so I guess I'm the bossy one if you talk to my siblings. I was born in Arizona, and then my dad was an Air Force pilot in his first career, and so we moved around a lot. And so I was in a different school all the way until I was in 10th grade, and then landed in McLean, Virginia, which is where I graduated from high school. And then my dad got hired he changed his careers to journalism and started with radio, and then became a broadcast journalist on the air with Walter Cronkite, and through Watergate. He covered Watergate, and
he was able to make that jump with a second career.
Yeah, he went to Syracuse University and got his degree there. And so that in itself, he started with WCBS in Washington, D.C., and then he got hired for CBS in New York City, so we moved to Connecticut. I was already in college at Virginia Tech, and then CNN started, and he got hired with CNN, and that's what brought us to Atlanta, or my dad to Atlanta in '85, my dad and mom. And we followed about 1990. So I've been here 30 years, so I guess I consider myself an official Southern Belle, even though my roots are all over the place. And married, my first marriage, a boy and a girl, Eric and Jesse, and then I had just a whole bunch of brokenness happened, and got remarried in 1993, and married to Dave, and he's my funny Brit that keeps me on my toes all the time. And we have 2 children together. We've been married 27 years, and that's Nick and Christina, and Christina is our baby, and Nick is 18 months older than Christina and could not pronounce Christina, so he called her Teeny, and that stuck. Never in a million years did I think when I chose the name Christina that it would get shortened to Teeny. The good news is her stature was very teeny, and so she went through phases in elementary school where, because she was small, she was like, I don't want to be called Teeny anymore, I want to be called Christina. So and we through all my moves, somehow I missed the whole church thing, so didn't really grow up with a whole lot of background in that. My mom was very busy with 5 children and lots of moves, and so just never really established that in my life. And it wasn't until 2002 when a whole bunch of other brokenness happened in my marriage that God came in and just, not that he ever left me, but he just blew our lives up. We found the little tiny church, Birmingham United Methodist Church in Milton, little chapel, and I basically said to my husband, we're going there. And the two younger kids, Nick and Christina, were only 6 and 5, I think, at the time. And I said, we're not going to make it. And we went there, and fast forward, the Lord just blew our lives up. It surrounded our family with mentors and incredible people of faith that I couldn't get enough of. Disciple classes and women's ministry, was the co-president of the women's ministry, and took this girl that was very broken and just put us all on a very fast path. And my husband got baptized at 52 there, and I was on staff at Birmingham United Methodist Church for 5 years, and here I am. That's a lot of this story. And then fast forward to 2016, and Christina, Teeny, and Nick were both at UGA. Teeny was there on a Zell Miller scholarship, and Nick was there on a Hope Scholarship, and Teeny wanted to be a vet, and she loved animals. She was an avid horse rider, and but her passion was reaching the least, the last, and the hopeless. Her heartbeat was wanting to make sure that everybody knew that they were seen and that they were loved unconditionally, no matter what their story was. And
so when did this start with her?
so when we first started going to the church, the little tiny chapel at the time, because a big church in the back wasn't built yet, she started in children's choir, and the lady that was volunteering, which was a very small choir, came up to me and said, you know, your daughter has perfect pitch. And I'm like, what the heck does that mean? I don't even know what that means. And so she started in church musicals and was always the lead because her voice, she was very gifted musically. And in 6th grade, she decided to go to the youth minister, and she said, I want to start a praise band, because there was no youth praise band. And he's like, okay. And the next thing, you know, we knew there were...
So had she picked up guitar?
So she taught herself how to play the guitar.
Oh my gosh.
And she just, one week she was in her room like a lot. And I'm like, what are you doing? She goes, I'm just teaching myself how to play the guitar. And I'm like, okay, who does that, right? And a week later she went to the, mentor that was mentoring them. There were 5 of them, and 4 were girls, 1 on the drums, and then the 3 vocalists. And Teeny just went, hey, I've learned to play the guitar, I'm ready to play the guitar now in 7th grade. And so that band, they called themselves Rise. They were so good. They were, leading worship in the main sanctuary, and they stayed together all the way through college. And they led worship for the sunrise services out on the land. And in the midst of all of that, Teeny also was very gifted as a songwriter, and so she wrote a lot of songs, a lot of original songs that I liked, to the point where she'd come down to the kitchen, jump up on the counter with her guitar, and say, I just wrote a song, you want to hear it? And I'm like, again, who does that? I would always joke with her, everything you try, you're good at. Could you give me some of your gifts? I mean, she was a dancer as well. She did musical theater. She was the Artful Dodger in Oliver, with an incredible British accent when she was 11 years old. And they were all like, okay, clearly she got this from her dad,
That Milton Theater program is...
Yeah, well, she wasn't at Milton Theater. She had decided when she hit high school she did not want to do musical theater. At that point, she knew that she wanted to lead other people in worship. And so she started with the FCA at Northwestern Middle School, and then she continued and was the president of FCA at Milton High School.
And for those that don't know what FCA is.
It's Fellowship Christian Athletes, which is not just for Christians, it's for, not just for athletes, it's not just for Christians, it's for anybody to come to and just, sing worship songs and learn about what it means to be in community with each other, especially as you're growing up, how important it is to have other people walking that journey with you. And like I said, she would literally go out in the hallway and say, hey, I'm not sure what's going on with you, but can I pray for you? Will you come and join FCA? How about coming Friday morning to just be with us? And
fearless.
Yeah, fearless for sure. Absolutely fearless and bold with her faith. She really wanted to make sure everybody knew that they were seen and they mattered. And then she started a ministry in 10th grade with a couple other girls. They both heard the Lord say to them, I want you to start a student-led ministry. And so they called it Ignite. And there were 3 of them that just met together and prayed. And by the end of her senior year, they had grown out of 4 houses, and they were in a barn with over 200 students weekly. So she trusted how God would take seeds and grow them if you just are obedient to that calling. Yeah. And she heard that calling. So she went to UGA, and she wasn't really a sorority girl, but as everybody does, it's a huge, they're rushing actually right now this week, Greek community. And she decided, I really think she decided she would do it because she knew she could probably reach more people in the Greek community with her faith than if she went straight into a faith-based community. So she found they called themselves the AKIO 15. There were 15 of them that were pledging together that became very close. And those girls, through everything, have been amazing. So her sophomore year, right before finals on April 27th, 2016, she and her 4 best friends, 2 that grew up together in middle school and high school, and then the other girl, Hallie, was at Dunwoody, but was her roommate, and also they all were on the same hall their freshman year. And then their RA, who was getting ready to graduate, was a senior, and she had texted all the girls, and one of the bucket list items is to go to the Iron Horse, which is this big Iron Horse statuary in the middle of a sunflower field in Watkinsville, which is about 15 minutes, 20 minutes off campus. And she had texted the girls and said, I'm getting ready to graduate, this will probably be the last, thing we can do before I graduate. Let's go to the Iron Horse and pray before finals. And the girls really didn't want to do it because they were like, we've got finals and we really probably shouldn't do this tonight. And the last thing that their RA said on the text, which sort of gives you chill bumps, is April 27th is going to be the most amazing night ever. Please, let's all go. And so they went, and there was another group of kids that were there that actually saw them, and they were praying and laughing and dancing and singing and being with each other and climbing on the horse, and that's the last place their feet were on earth. And on the way back, the RA was driving the car, and nobody was speeding, nobody was drinking, nobody was doing drugs. They just went to be together and pray before their finals. And she lost control of the car. We'll never know what happened that night. And Teenie was not seatbelted in, which is very unusual for her. But I'm sure that she was like, I'm getting out of this car first, and I'm going to go be with Jesus first. So she landed in a field, and the 4 of them were killed, and the driver survived the accident. And so it's been you can't even really describe this journey of child loss. The first 2 years are really a blur, and it's still, I'll probably have that grief brain until I get to go to heaven too, but it was very, very clear. Teenie lived her life on purpose. And she left us so many gifts between original songs, and she had written a blog called Spark in the Dark a month before the accident, and she actually sent it to me and said, Mom,
an unbelievable writer.
Yes, it's a very, very sassy,
girl.
But unbelievable writer.
Funny.
And very funny, very funny. And I guess she got that British humor from my husband, but she wrote this blog about, it was the morning after spring break, and she just writes about how that's the worst possible day ever, and then writes about an encounter in a coffee shop, and how these girls just loved on her, and how we can all be that spark in the dark, and how quickly...
It's like they smiled at her, and it completely changed her
trajectory of her day, that's right. And she just writes about... your one heart matters, and your one spark matters, and I think it's especially in the world we're living in, how quickly we get into this mindset of looking out of our lane and going, well, I'm not doing as well as that person's doing, and so we dismiss the importance of the gifting that we have, which we all do, and how important. Clearly how important it is to live your life on purpose, because we are not promised our breath in the next moment.
Yes.
And are you going to live your life on purpose because it's urgent and it matters? And Teenie knew that. She knew it was urgent, and she knew it mattered. And so this Spark in the Dark blog that she wrote, it was her celebration of life service was at the church, and we didn't have to write anything. She wrote her life. I mean, she sang her original songs, Be Still. She wrote a song called Be Still the summer before the accident at Young Life. She was a horse wrangler on summer staff at Young Life, and that's where she wrote Be Still. And then she wrote another song called Kara, about a girl she never met. And she had heard about her, and she was a senior in high school at a different high school and was supposed to go to UGA, and she got a rare blood disorder and died very quickly. And it was one of those moments Teeny came down the stairs and said, hey, I just wrote the song about this girl, Kara, and can I sing it for you? And when you listen to the words of it, she may have thought she was writing about Kara, which clearly it was about Kara, but it's all about Christina. And so that song she sang as the last song at her Celebration of Life service. There were thousands of people there. There were hundreds that accepted Jesus that night at the end of the service. And so that Spark in the Dark blog that she wrote, we took that name and established like 7 different scholarships. We've sent Young Life kids to weekend camps. We've sent them to summer camps. We've sent over 140 students to the Passion City conferences.
Yes.
We've established, and this is with the help of the community, because the community, we would not still be standing if it weren't for this community.
Oh my gosh.
And they have walked alongside of us, like I mentioned, the AKIO girls. They initiated me and my other daughter and my mom and Kayla's mom, because Kayla was in the car and she was AKIO, and her mom. So we all went through the whole initiation process and became AKIO sisters. And those girls have been incredible. And we've walked with them and they've walked with us. And they will be our daughters forever, the 13 other girls. And so we've established an AKIO scholarship. We've established a UGA Forever Endowed Scholarship that will be given to a rising junior, which is what Teeny was, in financial need, AKIO girl. And if for some reason the Greek community went away, we said a girl in financial need that's a rising junior. And then we've also sent kids to camp mission trips at Birmingham United Methodist Church. And so my passion is the next generation. I've always been passionate about the next generation. I believe in them. I love being with them. I was a confirmation mentor with middle school kids for 8 years at Birmingham. But, you know, it's taking the pain of my life and going, God, I don't want to waste any of it. Please don't let me waste my pain. And, you know, he has just been faithful and good, and we miss our girl all the time. That will never, ever change. But we are seeing beauty out of ashes. We are seeing lives change forever. I've had the incredible privilege of getting to sit with girls over coffee and getting to write recs for upcoming, like I have 10 recs I wrote for upcoming freshmen that are at UGA, and just getting to do, with the Passion Conferences, getting to do life with these young people that was opened up through this. And don't get me wrong, there are days that I'm just like, I can't do anything today. I just can't. And that's okay. Yeah. You know, God sees that, God honors that. And I'm not, you know, I never have felt like I have to do something because of performance or anything like that. It's like I have to do something because it's urgent, and I know, because I'm living it, how urgent it is. And I can't encourage your audience more than your gifting matters. Whatever your gifting is, your gifting and your passion matters. In the kingdom of God, it matters here on earth. And, you know, everybody has their gifting. And again, you know, I've just learned that the most dangerous thing you can do is to look out of your lane and go, that gifting is better than my gifting, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and I heard it, because we all want to ask why. It's human nature in our hearts to want to know, why God, why did this happen? And just recently, I can't remember where I heard it, but it's like we need to be, why will make you crazy if you hang on why.
Yeah.
It needs to be what.
Yeah, that's good.
We need to shift our heart to what. Because in his economy, in his kingdom, somehow, someday we'll see, we will have the answer to our why.
Yeah.
So I think for me, in watching you just mobilize with clarity and with strength and with heart and with purpose and with passion. I mean, you found your what, and I think it's been your lifeline.
Yeah, it has been my lifeline, and I think that's so good. That's a simple way to put it, because it will make you crazy asking why. Because there's no good answer.
No.
There is no
No.
answer that would satisfy me
Right.
or my husband or Teeny's brothers and sisters, and I'm not God. And do I believe God caused that accident? No, I do not. But do I believe God can bring beauty out of ashes? Absolutely. I've seen it over and over and over again. And the what? What do you want me to do with this, God? And He will give you the strength. Somehow, some way. And it's not my strength, because nobody could do this as a human. Nobody could do this. And I am very cognizant of that. It's like, this is not in my power, it's in His power.
So our kids aren't exactly the same age, so I didn't know Teeny, but I remember seeing the news reports that morning when it came out about the accident, and just the picture of those 5 beautiful young women, and it just, it takes a village, and when that happens to one family, it happens to us all, because it could be any of us,
That's
know.
right.
So
That's right.
I hope that you felt the prayers of a community surrounding you, and I think that's the only way you get through something.
It is the only way, and I mean, I know you have different listeners in your audience, and just to speak into that as far as my faith goes, and everybody's on their own journey at their own time, but I know that I would not be standing without my faith and without this community, because we were never meant to do life alone.
No.
And we all have whatever that is. We all have our stories. We all have our brokenness. Nobody is immune to that. And you're never called to do that alone. You're called to have other people walk alongside you. We're here to walk each other home, aren't we? And this community has been incredible. This community went into total, mobilization, and they're still praying, and they know that I want them to still be praying, because I need everybody's prayers. And
And I think, sometimes we feel that all we have is prayer.
That's right.
But that is so much. I mean, don't ever discount the power of prayer.
Never.
And your ability, even if you don't know how to pray, just close your eyes.
That's right.
And God will lead you
That's right.
in praying for protection, for covering, for healing, whatever that is.
Yeah. And I think that as women, I think that we are more wired to be the giver, right? But we are supposed to be a giver and a receiver for a reason. And so, I'm definitely more wired to be the giver. But there are seasons in your life like this that you have to put your hands open, and you have to surrender, and you have to say, I'm going to receive. I'm going to receive, and I'm going to let other people bring me meals. I'm going to let other people come and hug me. I'm going to let other people do what I can't do right now. And we're called to be both at different times in our lives. And, these AKIO girls, just the blessing I've had to be able to pour into them, and the blessing that they've had to be able to pour into me has been very equal. And one of the other things with the Spark in the Dark, and it's been on my husband and my heart for the past 2 years, but we weren't really ready to think about how to do logistically all of that. But God clearly said to me, Spark in the Dark, you do a 5K, and it's glow-in-the-dark wristbands, and it's 6 o'clock at night, and it's music, and it's in Athens, it's with all the college kids. They'll love that. It's a celebration, and it's a great way to raise the funds that we don't have this donor out there that's dropping money in. But it's a great way for people to be a part of pouring into the next generation and having fun with it. So we had scheduled the first Spark in the Dark 5K in April, and then COVID hit,
2020.
right? Yeah, then 2020 hit, and so we rescheduled it, and it's still on for September 27th. It's a Sunday evening at the UGA golf course. We already have 141 people registered, and we haven't even started really promoting it big time. But it's going to be super fun, and it's just incredible to watch. Like last night we went to Athens and saw our son and his wife, and stopped over at the Alumni Cookie Dough. I don't know if you know that place, but it's cookie dough scoops. Okay, it's edible cookie dough scoops. I'm just saying, and that lady, yeah, it was amazing. And the owner, last night we ended up having a conversation. She's like, "Can I bring the big cookie dough bowl to have at the end of the race for all the kids?" I'm like, yeah. So, and then Chick-fil-A is donated, and a friend of Nick's is DJing for free, and so my company's donated. So it's just like people want to make a difference.
Yes.
And you just need to let people want to do that, and everybody gets blessed by that, you know?
Sure. So if somebody wants more information about the Spark in the Dark fun run, it's a 5K?
It's a 5K walk/run. Now, I was a marathon runner in my day, no longer, so I will be walking, but it's at the UGA golf course, and you can go to active.com, which is a running website. Just type in teeny Spark in the Dark, and you'll get to the registration. And there's actually, you can register to go in person, you can register to virtually do it, or you can pick one of the donation bullets and donate. So there's five or six different choices. So if you just go to active.com and type in Teeny Spark in the Dark, you'll be able to find it. So yeah.
Awesome. And I will also link that to the episode notes of this podcast.
Awesome. Yeah,
so you can
awesome.
get to it directly. And I guess you're envisioning a yearly
Yes,
event.
we want to do it annually, and ACIO is actually partnering with us, and they just started their Rush Week this week, and they also are having their Give Back Week this week. They're in the middle of renovating their house, and I went to them and said, look, we're doing the Spark in the Dark 5K. I would love to give a portion of the monies towards the house. So they, yesterday was their first social media post telling about Teeny and Kayla, and they're going to have a post every day this week to be able to give back by, again, going to Teeny's link, and a portion of the monies we raise will go to the scholarships, and a portion will go towards the renovation of the house. So, yeah.
That is so amazing. So in a previous conversation, you were talking about the various stages of grief.
Yeah.
And how there's been a new one added.
There has.
If you can just kind of talk us through
Yeah,
that.
so I don't know if I really knew this, and I'll say, since I've living through it and still living through it, is grief is definitely not a linear process. It's a roller coaster. And, you know, my experience has been, you can be in stage one if you want, and I don't even know what that is, shock probably, because I don't know what the stages are, but you can go to stage 3, and then you'll be right back at stage 1, and then you know it's like a roller coaster. That's the best.
Compartmentalized.
Yeah, no, it is not, and you know, and being gentle with yourself, and it's not something that you will go, okay, I'm done with that list. Check, 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 check. You're never done with it. And so I had done an interview with WebMD on grief, and I had not heard about the 6th one that had been added by David Kessler, who, if you don't know him, he's phenomenal. And the 6th one, because he lost his son, so different circumstances, but is finding meaning. And that one resonates with me the most. You know, yes, I've been through all of them, and I will continue to go through all of them, but what am I going to do with what I'm living in, and living in the grief, and what should I do with that grief? Yeah. And again, it's not a performance thing. It's not I got to go do this, or I'm not going to pass the test. It's finding meaning in your pain, and finding purpose in your pain. And that's different for everybody, you know, because everybody's story is different. But you know, it's for me, that stage resonates the most, and maybe it's just because I'm sure it's a lot to do with the fact that our daughter lived her life on purpose, and it was so easy to find the what. And it was a perfect collision of my passion of the next generation. You know, it just was. I don't know if that makes any sense. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, you talked about being an evangelist for the next generation and how, you know, because of the platform you have now, how God's kind of elevated you and given you voice and
you know, and it's, you know, that's right. And Passion City is the church we go to, and Louis preached about, you know, not wasting your pain. And I think about that all the time. It's like, because it's so urgent, and we're not promised X amount of days, we don't know what that looks like. It's so imprinted on my heart how urgent that is. And because of my story of not really growing up going to church, you know, I'll never forget, you know, when I was we had antique shops in Alpharetta before 911, and that's how we found our church, is a lady came in and said, hey, do you have a church home? And the power of invitation. Sure. And did she know that that was going to change the trajectory of my family's life and generations to come? No, but she was obedient to trying to find ways to have a conversation with somebody in a natural way, in an authentic way. And then another lady came in the next day.
And she was using her gifts.
That's right.
Because not everybody is doing
that's right.
that, and that's okay.
Yep, that's right. And then another lady came in the next day, same conversation. Same thing, get a piece of paper, I'm going to draw a map to where this church is. That's exactly both ladies, 2 days in a row. And that's how we ended up there. And then the gifting that God had already put in my heart of evangelism, because I realized while I was sitting there in church in the early days crying for the first 2 years, my husband and I sat in the pews and cried, and everybody to the point where they'd go, don't sit next to Cathy and Dave, all they do is cry. But I remember hearing so clearly, wait a minute, if you all knew who Jesus was, why didn't you share that with me until I was 42 years old? That's really like convicting, right?
And why the tears?
The tears, my husband and I were just in a really broken place in our marriage, and it was just like a lot of stuff that we needed to process together as a couple. And the Lord was so kind to just come in and send these two ladies to our shop and send us to this little tiny chapel where people just loved us for who we were in all of our brokenness. Because I remember thinking, I can't sign up for a Disciple 1 class. I've never opened a Bible. Right. I'm scared. Everybody's gonna laugh at me, right? And those women just went, welcome. And you know, by the end of that first year, they were like, get Cathy to pray. She's so good at praying. I'm like, what? Only God can do that kind of stuff, right? Totally. So it was just a really sweet, holy time, even amidst very broken couple years for us as a couple. And God's a great healer. Yeah. He's a great, he's the one that takes, you know, ashes and makes them beautiful. And I always think about, you know, my pastor, Judy Wolf, at the time, excuse me, you know, was talking about sharing your stories, and, you know, and compared it to like a jar that was broken with lines glued back together. And she said it's in the brokenness that when you have all these broken pieces and you share them, that the light shines out of that jar. And if you're trying to be this perfect jar and you have no cracks and you won't let anybody in and you won't let yourself out, that you're not thriving like God meant you to thrive. You're not letting people into your story. And my experience has been when you share your story and you share your brokenness and your vulnerable, icky, crappy stuff, that people are like, whoa, I can share my story now because I'm not alone, right? And that's a beautiful thing when I'll start crying, but when you have sat with somebody and you realize that it's a holy moment and you're sharing your story with somebody, And then all of a sudden, it's opened up their door
Yes.
to go, I'm going to share my story and get real here.
Mhm.
What a healing, powerful moment that is.
Right.
You know, we were never ever called to be this perfect, like,
It's exhausting.
oh my goodness, and I guess it's probably part of my age and probably everything else, but, you know, I am
It's
a
not
perfectionist
real.
at heart, and it's
Yeah.
not real. And what freedom and surrender when you go, I don't have to be perfect.
Right.
I am who I am, every bit of
Right.
yucky, messy, beautiful parts, but that's what makes me who I am.
Yeah. And that's really the heart of this podcast. It's like let's let the walls down, let
That's
the
right.
light in, deal with our junk, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and be there for each other.
Yeah.
Give faith a chance.
That's right.
You know, I just think a lot of people struggle and they don't know that that's what's missing, that, you know, because there have been a lot of churches and a lot of Christians that, you know, I haven't represented very well, but give it a chance.
Yeah.
You know, if there's darkness, if there's brokenness, you know, find that small church, find somebody, you know, that loves Jesus.
Yeah.
Have coffee and just say, hey, I'm just wondering about this. Start the conversation. If you know somebody that's broken, be bold in starting the conversation. You know, just crack open that door
That's
a
right.
little bit.
That's right.
Because it can change, like the trajectory, like you said, of your married life, your family's life.
Yeah.
All those sorority girls y'all are impacting, and that's radiating out through UGA, and the people that'll be at this race. I mean, that's.
Well, and at Milton
Just
High
how
School,
it
where
works.
Teenie and Nick went to school, we started a Spark in the Dark scholarship there, and it's been so awesome because that's the one scholarship where we actually link them to Teenie's blog, and we ask them the question, how have you been the spark in the dark in your world as you've grown up, and how do you intend to be that as you go into the next chapter of your journey? And we don't have the names when we're given the answers to their questions. We just have a number, and this will be year 4 coming up in the spring of next year. But every year so far, my husband, my son, my daughter, and I have all picked the same number. And so that, you know, and it's also getting...
Or do you cheer
Oh, yes.
when you read those?
Yes, and it's, you know, it brings you so much hope because, you know, everybody's living in a really crazy world right now. And everybody needs to know there's hope.
Yeah.
Right? And these, not just the next generation, but us as our generation, and what's going on in this world, and bringing unity and hope and life to people's stories versus the division and everything else that's just
It's
crawling all over the place.
crazy,
Right? It
out
is
of
crazy.
control.
And so we can be a piece of that by trying to unify people and just say, you know, if we all love each other,
There you go.
it would be okay.
Don't
you know?
be so quick to judge.
Well, and I found, and I'm sure you have too, that when somebody reacts in a harsh way, or somebody says something and you bristle and you're like, I have found that for me, that I go, okay, something's going on in that person's life that's really not good.
Yes.
Let me find the grace and the kindness to see that with the eyes of God, and to realize that every person is going through something, and we have no idea what they're
Right.
going through.
Right.
And to look at everyone, again, my pastor said this when we first started going to the church, look at everyone in the pews as if their heart is breaking.
Oh,
Because you don't know what somebody is walking through. You just don't. And so when we have the grace and the kindness and the love to look at everyone as a child of God's, it takes that being meanness out of you. You know, it removes it, and you act in a kind, loving way.
right. And you're not going to get that type of coaching and advice from the world,
No.
right? Everything, you know, mainstream media, it's all about divisiveness and differences and darkness, and that's why you have to be intentional
That's right.
in connecting yourself with people that really believe in the power of good.
Yeah.
There is so much good in the world.
There is.
If you were to watch American news, you wouldn't think that there is.
Yeah.
This is an amazing country filled with amazing people, but you have to be intentional in protecting your heart and what you're taking in,
Yeah.
the people that you're around, and if you're not in a good place, find your people somewhere.
That's
because
right.
at some point, we're not meant to be alone.
No, we aren't. And I think
For me, the church is best when the doors are open, the arms are wide open,
Yeah.
welcoming the most broken of those.
That's right.
Into the pews. That's
That's right.
what Jesus wants.
That's right.
So don't think you can't do it because you don't know the prayers or the.
Right. Right.
Just
Absolutely. I'm the poster child for that. Yes,
yeah.
and don't get overwhelmed with I'm not as far along my journey as that person is. Just that word intentionality is a huge word that I've like leaned into, because it does take intentionality in every aspect of walking on this earth. And it does take, your community doesn't just drop in your lap. You have to be intentional about trying to build that community. You have to be intentional about, okay, well, maybe I don't know as much in that, if it's a Bible study or whatever, but I'm going to be brave and I'm going to go try it. And I'm going to be brave and intentional with my story. I mean, and everybody needs to do that in their own natural, authentic way. My way is not going to be someone else's way, and your way is not going to be someone else's way. And that's the beauty of us as humans, is that all those pieces get melded together, and it makes this beautiful tapestry of just I don't even know the right word, just this beautiful tapestry of humanity that's walking this earth, so yeah.
I know it's hard for people to support people who are grieving. Do you have any words of advice on how we can do that and do it well?
Yeah, so, yeah, I do. Never in a million years did I think I would be part of, a club that nobody wants to be a part of, losing a child. And everybody has different, grief stories. Some that are a child, some that are a parent, and I would say nobody's grief is better than somebody else's grief. Everybody's grief is grief, and you can't fix them. You can't, some of the worst things that were said were like, well, they're in a better place now. Well, yeah, they are, but they're not with me, right? And so that's not helpful to say to somebody they're in a better place. For me, I'm just saying for me, my experience. And people, especially women, I think, want to fix things and want you to move on and be done with it. It's not helpful to say you should be done with this, because you're never going to be done with losing your child. It's not helpful to say, well, at least you have another child, because that child is not teeny. Of course, I am so blessed to have 3 other children, but they are not teeny, and that doesn't change. That you might as well just, and I've never said it, but you partly want to say, really, which child would you like to send to heaven?
Oh my gosh.
So that's not helpful. It's hard to sit with somebody in grief. That's the most helpful thing you could do, right? Just sit and hold their hand. Let that person talk about their person. Don't get tired of listening to me talk about Teeny, because I'll talk about her until I get to be with her for eternity. I'm trying to think of all the different things, really, and Jesus talks about it in the Bible, really sitting with somebody and just being there for them. And not trying to fix things, because you can't fix anything. And I know that's hard as a human, because you don't like to see people hurting, right? Nobody likes to see people hurting. But tears are good, and tears are healing.
Right. And Jesus, fully human and fully man, when his friend Lazarus died, he wept.
Yeah, that's right.
He knew what it meant to love somebody and to lose that person.
Those 2 words are probably the
Jesus
2 most
wept.
powerful words in the Bible for me. Jesus wept, and it's just like he knows. He's weeping with me. He's weeping with my husband. You know, he's weeping with all of us that walk through brokenness. And can I explain why we're in such a broken world? Absolutely not. I can't. But I do know that everybody's called to have a purpose in life. And Teenie was called to have a purpose in life. And do I wish that that her purpose was 90 years old? Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Am I watching my 19-year-old girl change the world and bring people to Jesus from heaven, which is upside down kingdom work? I am, because she lived her life on purpose. So, you know, as far as grief goes, my biggest advice was just be with that person and don't push them. I mean, you know, in the beginning days, especially that first year, you are in shock. I mean, you are in absolute shock. You know, and people will say you're so strong. Well, you're just trying to survive, right? And you know, don't think that you're the one that's going to fix anything, because you're not. You're just not. You can ask the simple questions. What can I do for you? You can't bombard them. You can't. You know, you have to let them just be. I don't know if that makes any sense. I don't know if I answered that very well, but
No. I think that was very helpful advice. And I think, you know, some of us just don't say anything, which I think is bad too, you know, because you don't want to make that person cry or whatever, but...
Well, simple things like the Milton Love Project with the signs, you know, the next morning we had all the signs up on our front yard. How they found us, I don't know, but that's what community does, right? The simple things of sending sunflowers, those were Teenie's favorite flowers, sending cards in the mail, leaving a text message, you know, I'm here, you know, I'm not ignoring you, I'm here if you want to talk. Meals were set up for us for like 6 months, you know, and again, back to the receiving that in love, and not saying, well, I got to do this all on my own, you know,
Exactly. And I know for, you know, working in the addiction and recovery field, sadly, I have known quite a few moms who are in that. I think you're part of, y'all are organized kind of as warrior moms who've lost a child. And for some moms, it's healing to talk about the child. You know, it keeps their legacy alive. And I mean, I just love that all you're doing in terms of the scholarships and I know, do you listen to her music?
Oh, all the time, yeah. I mean, such a gift to have her voice. And the month of the accident, she actually had, my other daughter, Jessie's best friend, had gotten married that month, and she grew up with Teenie too, and Jessie, and she'd asked Teenie to sing at her wedding. So unfortunately there was no video of that, but Teenie sang at that wedding, and then one of her Young Life summer staff people in Colorado got married in April also. And actually the weekend before the accident, she had gone to Memphis and sang one of her original songs. And so we have these beautiful, very recent wedding photos of Christina doing what God gifted her to do, which is amazing that those two weddings happened the month of the accident. And then we have the gift of the blog and of her music. So yes, I listen to her music all the time. And actually Be Still and Kara you can get to and download on Spotify or Amazon or Prime or anything, and any of those monies that are raised go to the scholarships too. And it's very little money that comes in there, but we just felt it was a platform for people to be able to download her songs and and so all these kids have her songs on their playlists, and I'll get screenshots in the car going, look at all my thousands of songs, look, Be Still's up. And actually Be Still, I've had 3 different people want to play that song at funerals of their loved ones. So, you know, when you said about you just want to talk about your loved one, as a mom, you can forget about who I am, but in your heart you never want anybody to forget who Teenie is. because, she she still is.
She is.
Right? And so you don't ever want anybody to forget her life and what she did in her life and what she's still doing from heaven in her life. Yeah.
It's really quite amazing. So what would she think about her mom right now?
Oh gosh, you probably think,
fierce-
Mom, really? I mean, could you just go away? I mean, Teeny was, like I said, very sassy, and when you can get to her blog too, you just type in Stirring Heart is the name of her blog, and Spark in the Dark's and her last name, and you can read it. And she's got an about her, she's written about herself, and then she's got links to her playlists, which are both Christian and non-Christian songs. And but she would probably say, I don't know, well, her phrase, keep on keeping on, she might say that to me. Keep on keeping on, Mom. And part of her would be like, you're in my business, you're in my friends, why are you with best friends now with all of my AKO girls? But she would mean it in a very funny way. I think she would say, keep on keeping on, Mom.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's really good. So one last question for you. The word relevate means to uplift or restore to good spirits.
I love that. I love that.
I just think your story is right in the crosshairs of what I hope this podcast would be.
Well, I mean,
people who would just, suffer unimaginable heartache, but still find the strength and the faith and the courage to go on.
my hope is, I love that you've started this podcast. I love that word. I mean, what a beautiful way to uplift people through people's stories. And, in the very early days when I started getting asked to go share, I shared at the Grove at Passion City only 6 months after the accident at their Christmas gathering. And, I remember thinking, I don't know if I can do this, right? But I also clearly heard on the other side, you have to do this. You have to do this because people need hope. And the fact you've done this podcast to give hope to others is not anything to take lightly. It's a massive undertaking that the Lord has put on your heart, and you've been obedient to do that. And I love that. So that's it's part of my passion that through this platform, if we touch just one person through my story, then we've done what we were called to do.
Right.
And it's not about numbers. It's not about numbers.
Mm-mm.
It's about
See.
touching somebody and seizing the moment to do that. And
Spark in the dark.
spark
right?
in the dark, that's right. And
You just
stirring
never
someone's
know.
heart. You don't
never
know.
know where it's going to land.
You don't know. You don't know.
You never do know. And I love the intensity and the fire of your girl. She was everything,
Yeah.
And I feel that through the good work you're doing that I know her.
Yeah. And everybody says that. It's this thing you can't really describe that God is doing in her story.
Yeah.
And just as a funny other thing, my husband is a school bus driver. He's been a Fulton County school bus driver. So, I encouraged him in the early days. It's been 11 years now he's been doing it. And he has some amazing stories of how he's being a spark in the dark to these kids that see, he's the first person they see in the morning and the last person that they see at the end of the day. And in the beginning days when Dave started doing it, he's like, I never thought I'd be doing this. And I'm like, don't take this lightly.
Sure.
Because your calling is you're giving hope to somebody. You don't know what they've just walked out of their front door from. And so, Teeny and Nick would always go up, because he does Milton High School in Northwestern, and they would always run over to their dad, and everybody just thinks, Mr. Dave is the best bus driver. But, again, to reiterate what we're talking about, everybody's story matters and everybody's gifting matters, and it doesn't matter where the Lord has put you. Trust that he's put you there for a reason.
Yeah.
And this podcast is part of that. He's put you and seared that on your heart, and you're walking one step, little step each step forward to be obedient to that calling.
Yeah, and I love the fact that you and your husband, it sounds like this tragedy has forged you closer together.
It has, and it's funny because there were some people that said to me very early on, how are you guys doing? Because and they didn't mean anything by it, but they were like, didn't mean to say it as hurtful as it sounded to me, but it was like, your statistics aren't good that you'll survive your marriage. Yeah. And I'm like, I'll be damned if I am going to do this journey by myself. And it has brought us closer. Mm-hmm. It's been so hard, but we have each other. Yes. And it's brought this bonding that is very difficult to explain. Mm-hmm. And yes, it could have torn us apart, but it has brought us even closer together. And that I'm so grateful for, so grateful for.
Because you got that Jesus right in the middle of it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't know how you would do it otherwise.
Yeah, like I said, I was like, I am not doing this alone. Yeah.
Well, Cathy, it is such a pleasure to finally share this sacred space with you.
Thank you so much for inviting me today.
I love your girl, and for those of you that know and love Cathy and the family, keep close, keep connected, keep being intentional about reaching out, sending those texts, because this is,
This is a lifelong journey.
It is.
Keep those prayers coming.
It is. And I know it helps them too, because their hearts are broken, just to have that connection with you. Yeah. So when tragedy does strike, let's just try to fill in some of that heartache with love, and that does help.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to be with you this morning.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Keep preaching, sister.
Yeah.
Keep shining.